The production of this video was made possible by donors to the Orchestration Online Patreon initiative. Please consider adding your support to the creation of free educational internet resources by visiting our Patreon page linked below.
Hey there, this is your orchestration tutor Thomas Goss, with another short preview of my upcoming series on Carmina Burana. There was a great deal of excitement generated last month in the Orchestration Online community about the prospect of a full score analysis of Carl Orff's masterpiece, and subscriptions and views jumped up after I released my first preview lecture, Veris Leta Facies. Thanks everyone so very much for your enthusiasm and insights. You got the channel much closer to our goal of 77,000 subscribers. If you haven't yet subbed, and this series sounds like something you'd like to view, please click that bell now. The movement we're going to look at in this complete analysis is the shortest song in the entire 24-song oratorio, Dulcissime. I'll be starting each of these lectures with a quick look at the song texts, in this case a mere 2 lines. The word Dulcissime is sometimes translated as dearest boy, but it really has no gender by itself out of context, so let's interpret that more accurately as sweetest one. Then the following line, Totam tibi subdo me, is unambiguous, though it's sometimes softened a little by prudish translators. The exact meaning is, I surrender myself completely to you. That would seem to be the end of it. But let's dig a little deeper, because these short, to-the-point words, and their 4 bars of music, are anything but trite. To do that, let's look at the whole form of this third and last section of Carmina Burana, Cour d'amour, the court of love affairs, or courtly love. Each song has a meaning representing a step along the way to Dulcissime's moment of culmination and surrender. Amor volat undique's message is that love flies everywhere, and to deny yourself love is to be self-tortured. Dies nox et omnia represents the dilemma of a young man who's struck by an attraction to a young woman who withholds her affections, or is perhaps unaware of his feelings for her.
Dies nox et omnia, mihi sunt contra.
Meanwhile, in the next song, Stetit puella, the young woman is represented as a rose in her red dress, her face radiant and her mouth in bloom. As sung by the soprano soloist, to music that seems to sit on a knife's edge of suspense, it feels like a self-reference to the nearly unbearable potential of one's own ability to love and be loved. The perspective shifts back and forth, becoming the narrative of a courtship, with the baritone putting the object of his desire on a pedestal in Circa mea pectora. With his more carnal aspirations echoed by the male chorus in Si puer cum puellula. Setting up the teasing song Veni, Veni, Venias between the male and female choirs affectionately kidding each other with invitations to the game of love, comparing each other to randy goats with braying calls. After this, the soprano's touching meditation, Intrutina mentis dubia, shows that she's ready to yield herself to the yoke of love. This leads to the joyous outburst, Tempus est iocundum, the time of joy in which the whole choir admits to burning up with desire. It's a song with enormous emotional momentum, ending with suitable anticipation on an unresolved 5 chord, and it's right at this point that the soprano's cadenza Dulcissime starts. And is then completed by the glorious outpouring of Ave Formosissima, Hail, Most Beautiful One. So the building emotion of the entire final section is put onto the soprano's shoulders to be transformed in a moment of pure enchantment, opening the door to the ultimate expression of romantic triumph. You see, this is the kind of context I'm looking forward to putting into my analysis once the main series is released, so that the placement of each song and its relationship to the overall dramatic arc makes sense, which directly influences, in turn, the evolution of the orchestration over the course of an hour's performance. So please do sub the channel, as I can't wait to get this whole thing started in a big way. This video's analysis breaks down the scoring of the vocal cadenza for the soprano soloist, in conjunction with an orchestration tip I just released, all about scoring altissimo register soprano pitches. But let's start with a quick look at how this nightingale's fluttering and soaring is framed by 2 simple chords from the orchestra. First, the strings follow the soprano's opening statement Dulcissime with an A11 chord, omitting the major third of C sharp, the tonality of which is so heavily implied in the context of the music as to be unnecessary to include. Dropping that major third also helps the music to float, as it would already with triple divisi muted cellos and violas in their most central registers, plus a touch of bass anchoring the lowest cellos. These players sit on the chord colla parte to the soprano, easy to cover in one bow at pianissimo. After giving the soprano another bar of unaccompanied bliss, the strings come back for the resolution, this time on an extremely soft A7 chord, with some added texture for glitter and charm. We can see that the cellos simply play the same pitches as before, with the basses dropping an octave, and that low A octave is given just a touch more weight and punctuation with the doubling of first piano. The violas adjust to a simple A major triad, with no need for additional texture. But notice the divisi into 8 parts of second violins with 2 stacked inverted A7 chords, both sets doubled by either hand of the celesta player, and then the first violin supplying a high flautando A harmonic, touch 4 on the open A string, doubled by a ting on glockenspiel. That was the harmonic cake. Now let's look at the melodic icing. For the soprano, Dulcissime starts very conveniently on the A of the previous song, when it finished on the 5 chord to set up this cadenza. But notice the leap, up a major ninth, from a very comfortable middle voice A4 to high register B5. Orff helps out the soloist considerably by starting the leap from the voiced consonant on L at the end of the syllable. What's not so easy is hitting that high B with the literal sweetness indicated by the text, and the sense of abandonment marked in the part. At this pitch, the singer is at a reasonable upper limit for meaningfully pronounced consonants like ch and sa, not to mention the vowel sounds E and A, chi si me. But if they can be lightly pronounced, the result is a more subtle sense of yearning. Here at the start of the cadenza, less is more. The half rest where the strings come in gives the soprano a chance to breathe and compose herself. The A11 chord in the strings provides support and harmonic context, not to mention keeping the texture light against the solo. Literally, it's framing the passage to be more dramatically restrained, at least at first. Against this, the soloist can float down over those triplets, an octave from high A5 back to their starting note of A4, dipping down to G and then tripping up lightly in staccato to high A, landing on a solid tenuto B, pushing up to D6 and floating back down to B. There will be a natural increase of intensity as the upward running staccato scale reaches its upper notes, which the soprano can use to really brighten and project those ending tenuto pitches. This is all very operatic in a late 19th century manner and nothing like actual medieval music, but it all makes perfect sense as a dramatic hinge point between the playful energy of the previous movement and the anthem-like hymn in the next movement. After that moment of ecstatic clarity, the character of the soprano in this conversation of courtship states her intentions, which she's allowed to do simply, without any accompaniment. And yet it's a moment of extreme suspense, as the whole concert hall, performers and audience are waiting to hear her declaration, which is greeted with a concluding sigh by strings, keyboards, and glockenspiel, as we saw before. Each syllable is marked tenuto under a slur, not necessarily a portato as it might be played instrumentally, but more of an indication that each tone is to be sung fully through its duration. So it's more of a simplification than a sense of weight, especially with the piano dynamic. If anything, this cadenza should end with gentleness, and yet a sense of clear purpose. You'll hear, once again, the limits of pronunciation pushed against the start of the word totam, sung over A5 and B5. Not all that difficult, but certainly less than ideally placed. Let's listen to this whole brief movement one more time, keeping in mind the delicacy of the accompaniment, the architecture of the phrasing, and the colors of the vocal tone as it moves across its different registers. Listen for the special care the soprano uses in approaching pronunciation, articulation, and dynamic phrasing. Then I'll see you again soon with more videos coming up this month, and perhaps one more preview from this Carmina Burana series before the channel hits its subscriber goals. Thanks everyone for watching.